Hey, how are we doing? Hopefully everybody is doing well. I just literally got in here, so give me just a second to move everything around. Hopefully the sound sounds good. It's been a busy day. Out of the office most of the day dealing with some stuff, so I haven't had much chance. Hang on, it looks like I am almost set here. Let me just go to a different page. Hang on just a second. Hopefully everybody can hear me. If you can, shout out somebody for me just to make sure everything looks good on my end. But again, I just walked in and I may have missed something I usually wouldn't. Everything looks good on my end. Got a Christmassy background today. Hopefully quality looks much better than some of the videos. This is the new camera that I'm using and have been using. I think I about got it down pat. This is the Sony A6400 Alpha series. Awesome camera. I'm just blown away by the camera. Just a touch on that. I'm not going to go into the camera all day today, of course, but hang on just a second here. Let me go where I can see the chat because it is not showing up on my live dashboard at all. Hang on just a second here. Let me turn this off. Sorry. I have a bunch of devices on right now. I've got a couple cell phones sitting next to me. Hang on one second here. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm sorry, a little disorganized today. Let's see. Judgment Care USA. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Carl, how are you doing? I'm going to a doctor tomorrow, so I will know about that. It's probably just something that's just going to have to go away in time. No problem, Carl. You can catch the replay all you want. Glad you popped in. Hopefully it's going well for you, Carl. Hustle and Grind Calgary, how are we doing from Canada? Bill Betts, welcome. Wubba Lubba Dub Dub. I got your question, Wubba Lubba Dub Dub. You can pop those on my Facebook page, and I will look at some tomorrow for you personally. So just keep that in mind. You should have my Facebook information. It's down at the bottom if you're not on there. Hey, Duncan, how are you doing? 100 brush fires in our state. Duncan is in Australia. Things are not good here right now. Poor air quality and drought. I lived in Florida when there were fires going all over, and there was one at the end of our street, and it was just murder. The only good thing out of that one was that it was a bunch of orange tree brushes that were burning, and it smelled really nice. But other than that, it was awful. You couldn't see. There was times when it actually blotted out part of Highway 50 because there was orange groves on both sides back 20 years ago when we were there. I do remember seeing some. I think I was in California once when they had some fires, and this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, last time I was that far away. And there's Dom, Primetime Treasure Hunter. I was just chatting with him a few minutes ago. He had Wade on, and I was on his show the day before that as well. So a couple of good guys there. Wade's Ventures, if you don't know that. And obviously Dom, the man, Primetime Treasure Hunter. If you haven't seen him, I would honestly recommend it. One of the very few channels that I do anything with just by sheer coincidence. We ran into each other. Wade comes into mind because I just got a text from Wade, actually. So we're, the only reason me and Dom are like conversing is because of a Wade's video where I was on Wade's channel. So interesting chain of events. I think you talked about that as well yesterday, Dom, or 2 days ago, I think. Sorry. Cindy, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. I thought you were the next prez at... Yeah, I wouldn't want that position there. That's one I would stay away from. What was it? Google's CEO and CFO or something are stepping down over some of the scrutiny. A lot of stuff going on with stuff like that. I try not to watch any more than I have to, in all honesty, just because there's so much turmoil in corporate America with money and stuff. So anyway. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing? I did get your text. I think I shot you one back there, Aaron, too. Let me hop down here. Hey, Larry, how are you doing? Larry Spicer. Larry just got off his day job. Can't complain too much since I work out of the house. Good and bad all the way around. You never know. Oh yeah, I don't even pay attention to that wubba lubba dub dub. I just stay out of that stuff. That's none of my concern at this point. My only concern is family and getting the business going the best I can. Fourth quarter wise, it is slammed. I don't think I've talked much ever about politics, and I don't really care to. Everybody has their own opinions and thoughts on that, so nobody needs mine. Let's see here. Average investor. Would you ever be able to put those or these on Apple Podcasts? Do not mind supporting the ads, but run out of data on my phone sometimes. These are actually out on the run. I don't know anything about Apple podcasts or anything like that. I don't have any Apple products at all in my possession. I don't. I'd have to dig into that. I don't know how many people are feasible or what it costs or any of that stuff or something like that. Never been an Apple person. Nothing against anybody who is. It's just not my thing. I've been a Windows person since way back in the day when Apple wasn't as big. So I've just always been with Windows. It just happens to be what I was introduced with. Maybe if I was introduced to Apple first, I might be the other way. I know how to use the apps and everything on Apple. I've used Apples before when I worked at a magazine. Were all Macintoshes. Every one of their little tiny boxed ones, and that's how we did a magazine back in the day. Back in like maybe 86 or 87. I think one of the first lines of Apple that were out. Yeah, I would have to look into that though, average investor. There you go, Dom. Now you're being a goofball again, Dom. Hang on, let me pop up because my feed bounces all over the place. Hang on, at least I know where I'm at. Let's see here. Let me pop down again because it looks like I am off still. Let me pop down. Okay. Don's opening theme song. Yeah, I thought about changing that before. I even talked with Don about that at one point. I've changed the credit in the ending I don't know how many times probably. There's a few people who notice. It's a different one at the end right now than it was last month. I may change it one more time again. A lot of people don't listen to their stay to the very end of the video. Sometimes on rare occasions I put something at the very end. Kind of reminds me like the Rick and Morty. The last 30 seconds of the entire run is after all the credits, and it's kind of like usually something funny. But anyway. Donatello loves the background. Yeah, I've used this one I think once. I got a whole package of Christmas ones that I'll start busting out. I do like that. People ask why I use a green screen. I'm in a small area, and it just clutters the image, and it's just like right up on me, it feels like, in the videos, and it's just kind of out there. I did shoot a video in a different area of our house, and I'm going to show bottle collection, and we've started. The wife's is almost done with the Weebles. Her Weebles collection as well too, which is very large. I don't think anybody we've ever met has as many Weebles as the wife has, and she has a lot of the harder to get ones and foreign ones and Japanese ones and Spanish. We've got French. She's got German, Dutch. I mean, she's got Weebles from all over the world. Something that we've taken a long time to amass for her. So anyway. Shelly, how are you doing? Hey, Mary, how's it going for you? Yeah, the snowflakes. I did like the snowflakes, too. I may not dress like a festive person, but I do like we're still trying to figure out where to put a Christmas tree this year. It's a big tree, and we just want to get a good spot for it. That's probably going up tomorrow. We've just had a lot of things going on this week. A lot of appointments and a lot of things with the kids and stuff, and time has been almost impossible to get in this week at all. So picture quality is Amazon. I guess that's maybe amazing, and it's filled it in for autocorrect. Grenach's Connection, how are you doing? Sharon Harper, welcome tonight. Northeast Ohio, so you are going to be going towards what would that be? On the other side of Sandusky, maybe somewhere in that area, I would gather. Maybe heading towards what, Cleveland, if my brain's functioning. Where are we at? Rich Sanders, how are you doing, Rich? Flippin' Ozarks, welcome. Let's see here. Jim and Julie Mock. Hey, how are you two doing? I have been just swamped. Did I get the toner this morning? No, no toner here. The things have been swamped. As soon as I get in there, I know I said it, and I'm trying to get stuff going, but we've had some issues with my son and stuff that we've been dealing with. Little bit stressful the last couple days, to say the least. I will get some stuff going, and maybe we can do a video with a couple folks out there too. Let me pop down here. Prime time. Jennifer Kepler, how are you doing? Let me pop down. If anybody's got questions too, it's not going to be a super long show tonight. Daria von Helden, welcome. Interesting name. How's the stamp collecting going? I actually have some poster stamps, some Cinderellas from Italy from like 1930s that was probably my best score in stamps in probably the last, say, 10 days. Duncan probably knows what I'm talking about on something similar. It's from an air event. The poster stamps go for around $40 a piece. I have around 170 of these that I spent $20 on. Somebody had no clue what they had whatsoever. Good score. You can do the math on that if you want. 172 at $40 a pop. Calculate that out. That's literally what I should get out of these. Stamps, if you know what you're doing and know the specifics, I don't care what language it's in, you can make a lot of money. And it doesn't take much space for stamps. I've been into stamps for most of my life. I earned, a big nerd, I earned the stamp collecting merit badge in Boy Scouts like when I was 14. So I collected all kinds of stuff when I was a kid. My father gave me his collection when I was that age, and I used that and springboarded from there. So I do like paper of all types. I am fascinated by engraved paper of all kinds, interesting images, anthropomorphic animals. I really enjoy that artwork, and that's some of the artwork that I personally create and sell. So I love the old paper stuff. I could never get enough of it. I love covers of comics and covers of anything painted. I love the sci-fi 50s painted covers of the comic books. Tom Corbett is one of my favorites. There's only a limited, I think there's 11 standard issues. Then you've got 4 from the Dell 4 color series of him as well too. It was a radio where they had some serials, I believe, in the movie theater. Tom Corbett Space Cadet. Mark's made a huge line of toys of Tom Corbett, and it's one of the harder to get sets because they have little plastic clear helmets that pop onto the regular Mark's figures. There's a base, there's spaceships, there's plastic stuff to go with it, tin buildings and whole works. Tom Corbett, if you don't know what that is, look that up. That's one of the only comic lines that I've completed all of them, including the first issues. Vampirella is the only other one I'm almost there at right now. For those of you who know who Vampirella is, I'm sure Dom knows exactly. I've seen him in possession in videos with Vampirella comic books. So in their magazine size, they're larger than the rest of them. Vampirella was one that I wasn't able to collect as a kid, but there was a movie I saw, and it was a black and white movie sci-fi one, where a U.S. ship lands on Mars or something, and they bring this woman on that they find on the planet, and she apparently lays eggs, and she's a vampire, and that's where I always related Vampirella from, was this horror movie that I saw. And I don't know if it's related at all, but I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's a well-known movie, at least to me it is. I like all the kitschy sci-fi. I like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That's a low budget, so to speak. Cult classic. Clerks, if you don't know what Clerks is. I like all those kind of campy movies to some extent. The wife loves all the Return of the Living Dead and stuff. The ones that are made to be comical, so to speak. So we like some of that stuff. We only watch it for entertainment. We know it's not a super good movie, but Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a pretty decent movie, I have to say. Well, thank you as well, Shelley, for the support. Ship and Sunshine, Florida fire smoldered underground for weeks. I'll give you a story about smoldering underground. When we lived in Mississippi, there was a stump out, and we had 40 acres, and the front half was a field, and then there was a rim of trees. After the hurricane, it knocked down a bunch of the trees, probably like 50 trees, and we had them bulldozed over to the side in this 40-foot tall stack. and it was probably like 100 feet across, all running to the parallel to the road that was in front of us. We burned those all over maybe a 3 week time frame. We'd burn them one big bird and then squeeze them together and burn them. That was nothing. We had one stump in the ground, and I poured some gasoline on it, and it burned underground for like a month. All the roots burned out. It was the weirdest thing, because I thought it was out. It poured and all this stuff, and it smoldered, and you didn't see any smoke for a while. And then we started to see smoke come out like 10, 15 feet from this tree. It was a huge tree. It was old. It was probably 150-year-old, maybe an oak or something like that. I don't remember what kind of tree it was at the time. I know there's a mulberry tree that survived that was in front of it, but and it burned for literally like a month, and the ground collapsed all over the place from where all the roots went. It was the weirdest thing I had seen. I know there's a town that's been burning underground, some coal fire that's been burning. I want to say it's in West Virginia, but don't quote me on that. In the town underground, the mines have been burning for like 20 some odd or 30 years. That's a true story. It's still going on. I do remember the Florida fires, though. It wasn't fun. The smell was neat for the oranges, but other than that. Are you a collector? Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I still don't sleep much these days. Anyway, I got an appointment tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have a little better relief. Hudson Resale, how are you doing? Hudson Valley, I have been through that area as well. That's up towards Dom's neck of the woods. Where are we at? Inspire Forever, thanks for the great content. Well, thank you for the support. Shipping prices in Canada are high. We do order collectibles to keep or for friends occasionally from out of the country. So sometimes, let's put it this way, most of the time, anything I order out of the country, the price of the item is about the price of shipping. So if I spend $25 on an item, that's about what the shipping costs on it. So the average item that we get from overseas is about $50 no matter what it is, even if it's a small little toy or something like that. So that's just the way it is no matter where you order it from. We do have a kiln supply company. There's a potter supply company in Canada we deal with quite often. They supply, the flame-proof matting and kiln cement and kiln blocks and things like that. It's one of the best sites that PMRC Ceramics and something. I don't remember the full name of it, but it's a Canadian company. I've been to Canada. Son's been to Canada. We're going to Canada at the beginning of the year at some point. I'm trying to start selling, but I stop. Have some inventory. Is there any way to overcome the pricing on shipping? Some of the folks that I know from England have and I don't know how it relates to your country or not. You can use some service that's not one of the main companies like Airborne or anything. It was some local company, and it's a lot cheaper to ship that way. And I know there's one in Netherlands because we get quite a few things from the Netherlands from time to time, as well as Taiwan, China, in that area too. I don't know of any other way to Canada other than that. I use First Class International to Canada, and a postcard costs around, say, $12 to $14 if I'm not mistaken. I just go by whatever it does in the computer because it's all calculated. I don't pay for shipping myself, but that's the cheapest way, and I send everything first class with a tracking number. I don't care, even if it's a $3 item, they got to pay the $11. I know that I might lose sales, but if you put an item in an envelope without import-export, it's going out of this country, and it's an item that you personally, and it's something that you sold, that's against the law. I know people who's going to catch you, but these days they track. For those of you who don't know, eBay tracks every single label that you pick off and print from eBay through the post office. So they're able to see everything that you are mailing out. So sometimes if you've underpaid or something happened, I made a mistake the other day. I sent out a priority flat rate box as regular mail, just as regular priority. I didn't realize that I used the flat rate. I wasn't even thinking. I just grabbed a box off the shelf. I almost never use a priority box, and they ding me for it. I didn't argue because it was my fault. I had to even go back and double check what the policy was on that. And you can't do that. I know it's a different rate and all that stuff. It wasn't intentional, but I messed up. But that's all I can tell you for sure, without a doubt. Don't do something illegal, even if you think that they're not going to catch you, because the sale shows, even if you are just sending a stamp on it, if they leave good feedback, there's no import-export through it. Why wouldn't you add that on there? I wouldn't personally risk it. I know it's not going to technically show up on eBay, so to speak, but they're going to know it's going off. And if it gets flagged or for some reason something happens, I just wouldn't risk it. Just like sending stuff overseas to England or someplace like that. If it's over $20 and it's going to England, they have to pay a import fee on it. And it has to be declared and all that stuff. And that's why sometimes you'll have people ask you, can you only mark it for $10 or $1 or something, or mark it a piece of paper, because they don't get billed for single pieces of paper. Something like that. And I've sometimes in the past, I'll put one paper postcard as the title of what the item is, which is exactly what it is. That's about the most I would ever do for something like that. There's nothing wrong. I'm not stating it's anything that it's not, but it states that it's a piece of paper, and that's enough to get them whatever. I don't have any problem with saying it's a paper postcard or a paper trade card. That's about the only thing that I do. Again, but there's nothing wrong with that as far as I could see, say, or looked into. So post office didn't say it was an issue. I did ask that question. So as long as it describes what the item is specifically, there's no problem with it saying Victorian or 1910 postcard. I don't need all that in there. It just needs a basic description of what the item is. Yes, I rambled. I'm sorry there, folks. Let's see. Where am I at? Did I miss something here? My feed's all over the place tonight. Let's see here. Jennifer, welcome. If I didn't call you out. Okay, here we go. I would try, though, Inspire Forever. Just look around and see if there is a secondary service or some other kind of freight shipping or something like that. It's the only thing I could tell you on shipping from Canada. I've heard that from probably a dozen people or more. I do know a few folks that are from Canada, obviously, and we do chat occasionally. Hang on, my chat's gone again, so... I'm hooked hardwired in tonight, too. So I shouldn't have any issues. Jason Blake, welcome. Good evening. Glad to be here with you. Marrakech7, good evening to you as well. Harvester's Lair, best to stay away from that conversation. Yeah, I'm not into that. I don't even talk about it with family. Obviously, the immediate family, the four of us, but that's about it. Let's see here. Yeah, don't stop selling. Shipping prices are what they are for us. I hear you. Canada shipping prices out of sea or out of the country here in the U.S., it's a totally different story. I mean, I see the prices. I am drinking lemonade. No soda. I think it's actually fresh lemonade, if I'm not mistaken. Sure tastes like it. Let me pop down a little more here. A Canuck. Uh-oh. Local terms now. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing again? Toes tingling for you. Sunshine, or Shipping Sunshine. I think the best ever was Red Skelton's Good Night and God Bless closing. Yeah, I've seen that one before. We'll watch just screwy videos online, too. And I watch a lot of the old shows. I've seen them all. West First Books, how are you doing? Haven't seen you on here a little while. Great to see you this evening as well. Gomer's eBay, good evening. How are you doing? Yeah, spell check, yeah. Hopefully your issue got going there too, Donatella. Hopefully you got some resolve. Dom, you don't have to do that. I got a super chat from Dom here. 2 boxes of basic for him. You didn't have to do that, Dom. I appreciate it, though, for the super chat, Dom. I don't think I've ever done one for anybody in a super chat. I don't watch many channels, but Dom's is one of the few I've probably seen. There might be a couple of the older videos on Dom's that I haven't watched, but I can honestly, hand to God, tell you, I think I've seen every one of Dom's videos other than the first couple, maybe. That's about it. I can't say that about anybody else just because I don't have the time these days, but... Carolina Picks, well, thank you very kindly for the $5 super chat as well. Again, nobody has to do that. I honestly don't even think about it until somebody pops one up there, as it seems. So I thank you very kindly for the super chat, guys. And Dom, you know better. Come on. Hang on. Now it's locked me onto the super chats. There we go. Yeah, my feed's running all over the place. I already got 4 thumbs down. Yeah, they haven't even listened to the conversation. No big deal. If you do like the show, though, hit the thumbs up for me, please. Let's see, where are we at? North Canton. Okay, I've been through that area before, Sharon. We go probably about 100-mile range from us on a routine basis, and then I do hit Columbus and all the way through Hocking Hills 3 or 4 times a year, maybe somewhere in that range. I love the Hocking Hills area. The wife does too. We're big hikers. We like going through the hills and taking the trails and stuff. We've taken the advanced trails at Hocking Hills by accident the first time, but ended up being an 8-hour hike that we weren't expecting. But anyway, we always have fun going to Hocking Hills. Anybody who knows the area knows how awesome that is, especially in the fall. We've been in there in the winter too. Let's see here. Alec Klug. I don't know who that would be. John, how are you doing? Tecumseh, Michigan. John Smelek. Hopefully I pronounced that without butchering it too badly. Yeah, Tecumseh. I've been through there maybe just a few times. I get up to Ann Arbor more than anything else if I go somewhere. Ann Arbor is usually the first place. Ann Arbor is awesome for certain things. Next to Motor City, Ann Arbor's the second best place I've ever found records, for those who know Michigan at all. Ann Arbor has a huge amount of collectors as well as university collections and things along that line. There's even a company out that way that does some things too. So it's always been a plus for us to go out that way. We're going to Frankenmuth in not too long too. Unusual Vintage, well, thank you very kindly. It has lithographs of Reselling, French history, no cover. Should I sell each print and tear the book apart? 1890s is kind of iffy on if it's in French language. That's a little iffy on that. I would have to see it. I'm going to be looking for Webba Lubba Dub Dub's photos tomorrow. You're welcome to send those a photo of the title page and then the date copyright page through my Facebook if you're interested. I'll be happy to take a look at it. And thank you for the super chat as well. I would have to see the book specifically and know the topic to tell you. If it's military related, I almost always sell lithos down below. But the book itself could have some value. Try looking on Abe's books if you get a chance first, because sometimes a missing cover could be replaced if it's some sort of historical, rare, or dead edition of something. So French history isn't as good as most topics, unfortunately. I do far better with like a British one than something like that. Even a German one would sell better. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe there's not as many French collectors. I don't know, but I don't do very well with French. Same like postcards and stuff. I'll sell a British one 10 times faster than I would ever a French one for 10 times as much money. Of course, I'd sell a U.S. one 100 times faster than a British one. There's just not the collectors, so just put a photo of that up there for me on Usual Vintage, and I will be checking that. I won't have a lot of time, but I'll make sure to check you and Webba Lubba Dub Dub for sure. One question and comment I do get is I don't answer questions at all, which just I answer questions on the live chat for pretty much most of the chat itself. As I said, I do have a video that we're going to be doing like every 10 days or so that's just going to answer questions from everybody, leaving them below video. So if you want questions answered, one of my employees is just going to pull up 6, 8, 10, whatever we happen to think we can get in a time frame, and they're going to cut me a screenshot of them, and I'm just going to answer them from there, just straight off the bat. So FYI, it's just going to be random ones that they pull underneath many different videos. I think the last video that I did with just questions, maybe they were all from different videos, maybe I think even as well too. I already had a couple that they pulled from the question video itself, which we're going to answer a few more too. But anyway, let me move on here, and it actually cleared off. Good. Let's see here. Found for lesson 2 that I found Bo Donaldson in the Haywoods 8x10 7 full band signature autograph. Not very valuable though. Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods, no, they wouldn't be very valuable, but you might get the right collector, something like that with the whole band. I'd expect you could probably get $50 or better for it. In my opinion, it would not be worth sending off at all, because even with it sorted, they're just not going to hold much value. I don't even buy records by them at all, in all honesty, for the most part. It's a toss-up, but $50 to $75 would be something that I would personally put on that, in my opinion. Galaxy 5000, I love 50 sci-fi art. That is, painted art covers are like one of my favorites. And that's kind of like with the frog painting I did. That's the same kind of thing that I've always enjoyed. I just love the Tom Corbett covers. I mean, they're the Dell 4-color series. It's 1,000+ editions. All the painted covers are cool in my book. Even some of the Zorro and stuff like that. I just love the painted cover artwork on comics. That's one of my things. I mean, I've got just a assortment of files of just cover shots that I've copied and pasted into a file of stuff that I sort them by. I've got just one with robots and one with comic book covers and Christmas covers and all that kind of stuff. It's, inspiring to some extent, and I use them for graphics ideas and stuff. In the old days, print ads and magazine ad slicks and stuff like that were cut up, and they'd keep them in file cabinets when I was younger. When I was, 10, 11, 12, that's how they did that back in the day. You didn't have anything like this, so they just yank out magazine pages. Nowadays, you can keep it, on a PC or laptop or something and have millions. I've got a couple terabytes of data we've got saved for various things, whether book, photos, images, or whatever the case may be. Music, I've got more than a terabyte just of MP3s, because I'm heavy into music. For anybody who's knows me very well, I love music, and I save and burn copies of tons of the records that we buy, especially the oddball, the unique. I like rockabilly, I like rap, I like, geez, you name it, I like it. I was listening to the Statler brothers counting flowers on the wall just before the show, coming home in the car. So, I'm sure there'll be a few people know that. It's in a movie, Pulp Fiction. It's in Pulp Fiction, and I think Bruce Willis is listening to that song. I've known it since, I was a child. My parents listened to that, too. So I've listened to pretty much everything. Disco I wasn't a huge fan of, but there are some disco songs. Kiss has I Was Made for Loving You. You can't beat that one, and that's a disco song. Beth is technically a disco song. And there's other rock groups that have disco songs, but... Donatello, gosh, I got a huge stamp collection out of one of my storage units. I sold them for pennies at auction. Yeah, I purchased last month a massive collection, and there was a bunch of China ones in there, and all my money is sitting in those China stamps, and I don't have much into it. The Ford ones, people stray away from Ford ones sometimes. If it's a novice person, they stray away from Ford ones, in my personal opinion, because they're afraid to invest into something like that. But I do very well in stamps, and I do mean very well in stamps. Stamps, one of the areas that I would say there is no slowdown. If anything, the values have gone up, just like graded comic books or something like that. Where are we at? Are you a collector, Don? I know you take offers on your bin items. Do you set up any with auto accept prices, or do you respond to each offer? Someone here accepts each offer individually, for the most part. There may be a couple hundred items that I've just got to set, and if it's not that, it doesn't go. Those are the forget it and not worry about it, and they're usually items that are under $10. I don't rarely go much under $10 on anything these days. We used to do $7.99, so I still have a threshold lower than that we'll accept. So in most cases on the older items, if it's a cheaper item, I won't go below a certain mark, and that is set up in there. You can set those up in bulk too from the edit option of the Seller Hub on your items page. So FYI, there's a lot you can do with bulk edits for everything. And I know some of the bulk edits weren't working before, but there are workarounds for some of that, even with bulk editing. Just to let you know, I don't have those issues with bulk editing at all. I did a video just the other day talking about item specifics. Now, item specifics in the past, I've ran every test in the world you could do. I ran identically like items in 2 different stores before. I have 2 different items. It wasn't like I didn't have 2 of them, so even if I sold them both, it wouldn't have mattered. I have them. You can't run fake ads, but I actually have the merchandise. I've got 50 of items even, hundreds of items of the same item even. So there was no difference before without all that item specific. But since they've redone the database on eBay, and I'm sure this is the case, whenever you set up things and set up the catalog eBay is working on, it's gearing it same basic principle as Amazon. Now, I'm not saying they're trying to be Amazon or not. I don't know what their mental thought is and what they're doing, but they're going to have a catalog system. And they've now dwindled it down into mandatory, category specifics and comics and all this other stuff. So even if you have Spider-Man. This is for Dom. I'm sure Dom knows this. I rarely have ever done any item specifics before October. You never needed to, in my personal opinion. As long as it was in the title, it would show up and you put it in the appropriate category. But nowadays, when you put a comic book up, not only do you have to select the publisher as Marvel, but they also want the main character. So then you got to go to a secondary spot and do Spider-Man. So it gets to be a little bit of a nuisance on Amazon. It's so much easier to list any of that stuff. It's like night and day now. And I go to look at pages. People send me things and say, hey, what's with this? What's with that? You know, what eBay's changed this, changed that. Here's a new one, which I was going to put a video together on. And I haven't had a chance to respond because we were literally at the doctor's, or hospital all day long with my boy. But there was, what's it called? Sales Reports Plus. I have Sales Reports Plus. eBay's never said they're discontinuing it to anybody like me who has an Anchor store who's had it for all these years. I've used it for, I don't even know how long I've used it. I've had it for so long. It's going bye-bye. And they copied me in on the conversation. Thank you. I will respond tonight as well, or first thing in the morning. But the point of it is, if you haven't used Sales Reports Plus, I don't know how you're getting your reports. I don't know. I'm going to have to dig into that. This brought up stuff in mind, is if they're dumping Sales Reports Plus, I use that religiously. I make my own reports too, because you can pull them from your sold items page and all that kind of stuff. There's a report option at the top right of your hub on that page, if you didn't know that. And you can print reports, which you can gear towards what you want. They want it all tied into the hub. My opinion is they'll probably raise the fee on the next round for all the stores and offer you a better reporting system as a service to get you to pay for the higher fee, is my personal opinion by what they've done throughout these years. I'm not saying that's bad or good, but I am glad, though, like with Terapeak, they added back in the categories so you can sort through categories. The only big drawback on these services they keep adding, like Terapeak, is missing so much, you can't look back at anything past a certain time frame. Now, Terapeak used to allow you to look back 90 days because if you go to eBay sold listings, you can look back 90 days to see what's sold for comps for the last 90 days. Now, if you're looking at Terapeak, I noticed things from last month that I can't even click on to look at the listing. So then I have to forcefully go back to eBay and look at completed sales for the exact same information that they promised us would be on Terapeak. It's not, because you can't open up a listing on Terapeak directly unless it's like 30 days old, and that's it. They offer the paid service, which will give you all of that, but, you know, I'm not one to do that at all. The only paid service I do pay for price research is PopPsych, as those of you who know, because records, I do so many records. I'd be a fool not to use PopPsych and Discogs sold record history and eBay's all together. It's the only way you can do records. 3 main sites, 4 if you count Craig's, and all the other sites that we do follow for like Soul and Northern Soul and the classic floor stompers from UK from the old time. So I know I rambled again there, but hopefully that makes sense to some of you. Let me slide down here and go see if my feed doesn't disappear. Vintage circus posters. Excuse me. Sorry, I've been talking all day at the appointment. Vintage circus posters do very, very well. Sideshow posters are the best. Any sideshow character or persona goes extremely well. In occasion, I've had some like 50s and 60s, what do you want to call it? Ringling Brothers posters that we bought in Florida before when we lived in Florida. And those went for $300-400 a piece. You go back to like 1890s circus posters and you're talking thousands of dollars. We've sold trade cards of sideshow actors, whatever. I don't want to use the term that everybody uses because that's not really my thing on that, but... And I've sold some of those for like $800. You've seen them in my videos before. So anything circus early enough goes very well. And it doesn't have to be Ringling Brothers. I've got a huge assortment of posters. In fact, I just remembered that are sitting right up there now. They're cardboard from the 50s and 60s. I'll think of the name probably in a little while here. Giovanni, maybe. It's just, there's like 50 different circuses that you can get stuff from, just FYI. And that's from Stevie 100WL. Yes, I said Vampirella there, Dom. Hey, Midwest Picker, how are you doing this evening? Any other Canadians here tonight? Usually there's a couple. There's usually a few from Australia, and there's usually a couple from England as well. Hey, Swamp Picker, how are you doing? Just found the bad seed yesterday. Oh, I've seen that before. There's another one that I always remembered as a kid, and it took me forever to find it. Now it's saved on my list. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a movie where if you wore this necklace, this biker gang, they'd kill themselves one by one wearing this necklace. And if they died wearing the necklace, they'd come back to life and live forever. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a classic. I snuck up late one night when I was like 8 or something and watched this movie. My parents wouldn't let me watch it. My parents were very adverse against things like that. I couldn't even watch Saturday Night Live back in the day. Let's see here. Stamp collections, even if uncanceled, sell at a steep discount to face value. The only exception is rolled in sheets of forever stamps. Yeah, we buy postage stamps at face. If let's say it's $100 face, I usually pay less than 50 cents on the dollar for stamps, and then I sell them unused at 70 cents on the dollar. That's our ratio. I try to get them between 30 and 50% of face if I'm buying brand new NOS stamps and rolls or whatever they are. You can get more for them if they're, a sealed roll, but I don't try to mess with those too much because people might think they're stolen. I see that a lot. There's been several postal employees caught recently with thousands of dollars worth of stolen stamps that they sold on eBay. Like if you buy a collection, it's like sheets and they're not worth reselling as a sheet. As a stamp collector, I usually sell them at, 70% of face value sheet-wise. I've been in stamps for most of my life. As I said, stamps are a huge market, and there's other areas in stamps too. I talk about those in Patreon more than anywhere else, and they're coming up in another Patreon video. Next Patreon video is going to be covering questions, because I got some real good ones question-wise on some of the items that I sold, and somebody pointed out a real good question, so you'll get to see that in Patreon. Tomorrow's video is going to talk about sourcing the items that I sell. And this comes from another question from somebody stating that, there's no way I'm going to find this stuff. And I hear that quite often. And then I get those that realized, that dug into it way outside the box, and they figured it out as well, too. I talked to people who've stepped up and went from clothing to collectibles since they've been following me. And I'm not trying to take credit for all that. I'm just stating that I've seen progression, and I see if you dig into stuff, you can switch up categories. I was a clothing seller. I was a book scanner. So I went from that, clothing necessity-wise, books, when the apocalypse came with Amazon, with the raising of the fees for storage, and all my bread and butter went bye-bye then, because the fees were increased so much that I wasn't making the money. On Amazon back in the day, when book scanning was big, you made your money from cheaper books, $10 books, $15 books that you're making $5 to say $7 a pop. But there were so many of them that I could get. I get hundreds of them in a trip and send off, hundreds of pounds to Amazon. And it's just a matter of scanning. That was always the best way. And once they raised the fees, it brought it down to, $1 a book or $2 a book if I was lucky. And it just wasn't worth it anymore for me. Plus competition. And around here, there's dedicated book scanners and things like that because of the size of the city. Is that invisible? No, you can actually see that. Let's see where we at. Let me slide down here. Donatello's got a question. If my feed is frozen again. There we go. I have a poster style. Let me see here. Donatello. I have some posters type stuff that are real old. I would love to StreamYard with you someday. Maybe you may be interested. You can hit me up if you'd like. I do have an email address that I do check. Excuse me. I've been talking with doctors and stuff all day long. Excuse me. I talk a lot at home and working too. I've got new employees and stuff, so I've got a lot of stuff going on here. So, and I was on the phone today for an hour and a half, unfortunately, early, but we do have some business deals going on too. European stamps can do very well. If it's a stamp, now, new stamps are different. If you want to talk about collector stamps from Europe, some of them can go for thousands of dollars a single stamp. You got to know something about stamps. Don't ever think stamps are worthless if you don't know value on them, I should say. Stamps is a tricky one for a novice to get into stamps. European ones are just as good value-wise as U.S. stamps. So, it just depends on the age. The rule of thumb is look for stamps that are below 1900 and large quantities of those types of stamps. You usually can't go wrong, no matter what country they're from. But Tanya Brittingham, how are you doing? Been to PA too. Been to Philadelphia a few times. CJ Speno, how are you doing? Boy, my throat is messed up today. Sorry, folks. I fell asleep with my contacts in last night, which didn't help out at all either. I've got the extended wear, but I don't like sleeping with them. Killer Cons from Outer Space is on YouTube Movies for Free section. Yeah, I think it's on Prime or one of those other ones. We have Prime, YouTube Red. What else do we have? We do Hulu and Netflix. No satellite or anything, but Luann Short, how are you doing? Kernosh Connections. I was feeling run down, stomach issues. Found I had acid reflux. Yeah, my issues besides that. I was bitten by a bug, and I have some internal organ issues from that brown recluse spider. I won't get into that. I've talked about it before. Duncan's drilled me on that for many times. Saw Mizuka, how are you doing? There are some vintage postcard books I managed to get a hold of. Is it best to separate, excuse me, or to sell a whole booklet? Now, I'm not sure if you're talking about booklets that it's one postcard that you have a flap open and there's a bunch of pictures inside, or if you're talking about like a postcard album with hundreds of postcards inside, separate individual mailed or unmailed postcards. I never would sell a book of postcards as I found them. I would always pull out the good ones, sell the good ones, and then fill in the gaps and then resell the rest of that stuff. So I sell postcards individually. That's the point. Individually on postcards. And stamps as well, too. Centralia, PA, underground coal fire for many years. Still burning, I think. Yep, that's the one. Flippin' Crazy, how are you doing? Yeah, I think it's still burning, too. Hang on, my feed just... Meredethy Deals, how are you doing? Love your snowflake background. Yeah, it's pretty when it's indoors. Yeah, we had snowflakes actually earlier today. It's been burning for over 50 years. Yeah, I know it's been a while. I remember seeing something like in the 80s or 90s. Early 90s when I met my wife, yeah. Yeah, it just depends for postcards, as I said. You're going to have to look through them. I know which ones to pull out, so I don't, have to look up every postcard. I'll pull out the ones that should have a value, and the rest would just stay, and I won't mess with those. I'd sell them in bulk or just take it right back to an auction and be done with the book. I don't mess with it. I sell lots of postcards, 1,000 at a time, too. Galaxy 500, had someone try to talk me into putting something into an envelope once to save on shipping. I hear that all the time. I don't usually respond, especially the minute they ask you, can you declare this on it, I'm done. And for those who say it after the fact, after they've paid, and then say, can you declare this? I thought originally, it might almost be considered like a, entrapment to some extent, but at the end of the day, they could leave you bad feedback if you don't do it. And your proof that they did it was because of them asking for the illegal act of stating something different on it. If they asked you to state something that's not true, like you sold a $100 postcard and they wanted you to declare it for $10, you got them on trying to get you to do something illegal. So eBay is going to side with you or something like that if they dog you on feedback because you didn't give them the illegal, break on taxes. As I said, if it's over $20 going to England and most of Europe, there's an VAT or import tax on the item for the most part. Let me pop on down here. Hang on just a second. My feed, as I said, goes all over. Hustle and Grind Calgary. I sell 70% to U.S. buyer. Darn. Excuse me, boy. We're not going to be on too much longer. My day's been long. I was up at 6. I didn't go to bed till like 3. Yeah, I've got like 3 hours of sleep in the last 2 or 3 nights. And this chair doesn't do me wonders either, but let me go back to your pays $19.77 Canadian for one clothing item. Yeah, I could see that. Clothing is just a hard press though, and if you got to add in the shipping, it's a little worrisome. Welcome, Can Man. Let's see here. Let me slide down. Printed on blue. Also check for famous names and signatures. Yeah, very rarely do I find anything on the back, but I see more signatures on the back of postcards that are worth money than I ever find stamps on the back of a postcard worth money. Now, the cancellations before, I've had good cancellations that made a regular dollar postcard sell for like $40 to $100 just because of the cancellation. Like MacArthur was on one of them. And shoot, I can't remember what the other one was, but they were cancellations for special events that only took place on a day, one single day, and that usually adds greatly to the value. Hang on, my feed's bouncing again. That's all over the place again. Hang on just a second. Let me pop up and get some more questions. Yeah, my feed is all over the place. People thumbs down because they don't like the word reseller and refuse to understand it. There's just haters, I guess, if you're talking about the thumbs down. Everybody gets them, it seems, once you get so many. I had a stalker for a while. I've had people send me some really awful emails and stuff. I just delete them. I don't mess with them. Hang on, let me pop this. I'm still missing feeds all over today. I wanted to get to the night. Another question in sight. And it's gone. Hang on one more second here. It looks like I'm almost, if my feed will stop bouncing. I'm trying to get to another question, folks. Yeah, it took, here's Judgment Care USA. Took me many hours to learn enough, learn what I had that made me a better picker. Knowledge is the number one thing that anybody can, that everybody should have, that everybody can get. I mean, there's no skill or secret to what I do. There's no hidden magic gem that's going to get you the same items that I get. If I can find the quantity of stuff that I have, anybody can. And I made a misquote the other day. I quoted that I have like 300 and some odd thousand items in inventory. I have 300,000 plus just records. I probably have 1 million items in inventory. Probably close to half of that is paper. Individual pieces of paper, sheet music, booklets, and things like that. I bought it in huge quantities. We've been doing this for 10 years full time. So some of that stuff that I've had maybe for 5, 6, 7 years that's still in boxes that I haven't touched. I'll sell part of it. I'll get a bunch of money back, and then the rest is free, and it sits here sometimes. I have a 90-day plan for most things. I have a year plan for some things. Some things just sit in boxes until we get a chance. We're working on maybe a warehouse or something as we are talking now, but I've got like 100 boxes from a storage unit that I bought last year that I talked about that I haven't even opened yet. And they come from a picker who passed away. So one of these days, I may put up a video opening these boxes. And in all honesty, I have no clue what's in the majority of this stuff. I was helping out his wife, and, I bought a bunch of stuff. I know he had good stuff, so I took a chance and part of a trailer, leftovers on a trailer. So it's out 100 boxes, like 14 by 16 or so, cube ones. Let's see here. Well, thank you as well, Inspire Forever. You have to excuse me today. My throat's not with it today. Excuse me. When you get negative feedback, what message would you send to the buyer to get them to reconsider and change it to positive? It depends on what the feedback was left. For negatives, I had 2 negatives probably in the last maybe 2 years, and both of those eBay removed because of the situation. Something they said, something they made some comment in an email prior to them leaving the feedback, and that was all it took to get them removed. Or I could prove what they were stating was obviously incorrect. eBay used to be worse on feedback getting removed, but these days I've had very good luck on the feedback. One threatened to leave feedback, and they got booted off eBay for doing that just the other day. I know they don't tell you what happens, but they're not a registered user anymore, and that was like 12 days after that incident happened. So eBay's gotten better on it, in my personal opinion. Again, it's going to depend on what the feedback is. I wouldn't harass anybody. If they're upset about it, I don't know what you can do. If you send them an email, you might just tick them off and nothing would happen. If it was an issue about, something wrong with the item and you had something wrong with the item, I don't know what you'd be able to do with that. If it was an issue and it was just a misunderstanding or something like, hey, you overcharged me in shipping and they left you negative feedback for that, I would offer to fix the issue without even mentioning, hey, would you take the feedback off? Fix the issue, tell them, hey, I'm always here to help you. Sorry you have an issue. I'll do anything I can to make it right. I always look to have, 100% positive customer service. And I do take care of all issues. I'd say something along that line and then just go from there. And then wait a week or so and then say, hey, by the way, would you mind? I've helped to take care of it. It was an honest mistake. Very sorry, sincerely. We try, 100% of the time to do the right thing. But we mess up. We're human. Blah, blah, blah. And off you go. That's about the best I would say. I've had luck enough. It's been years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where I had somebody change a negative to a neutral. And it was something that had nothing to do with me. I think it was over postage or something itself. Or not postage. I think the delivery date or something screwy like that. And that was before eBay having that delivery 3-day guarantee. I don't do any of that. One more question that I've had many times. I do not do promoted listings anymore. I haven't done them since the ad blocker fiasco. And again, I'm the one who pointed out the ad blocker fiasco to the world. Not to brag, but I started the whole fiasco with everybody complaining about it. It was my video. I figured it out. And I won't touch it because I was so dismayed by how it was handled with eBay and the fact that they still couldn't come out, even with them video conferencing with me personally. They never even returned my calls, or not my calls, but the information I asked. I made specific comments that I was told they would answer. They never got back with me. All they seemed to want was for me to say, yeah, I'm comfortable with the promoted and wanted me to still talk about it on eBay. That's what I got out of the conversation because they never called me back. And then the next week, the CEO steps down or is forced out by the board. So I never even bothered calling back because obviously they're in turmoil at some point. It's not a dog on eBay itself. It's a dog on I guess maybe some of the people running it at that time. I was put off by that. I won't do promoted listings anymore. I don't care what it does. I'm not going to do them. The ad blocker still blocks them. Their quote on suggests 2% or less is not true. That suggestion means nothing. It's just like a manufacturer's suggested retail price. That means nothing. Anybody who RAs knows that's just a laughable set price. It means nothing. I know the statistics. I have an IT degree. I was so... The whole point of that was that I talked to people there and they didn't even put me in front of anybody in IT department. And we're talking about an IT issue. They hadn't a clue on what ranking meant in Google. This is from the eBay staff who's running these promotions, mind you. That's exactly what I was dumbfounded with, that the people running eBay who are supposed to be ahead of the promoted listings department, as well as seller services and all these other department people that were on this video conference with me in California, hadn't a clue on why I was complaining about ranking, why this, why that, and they told me that they could figure out these numbers or by this and that, and then they didn't track them, and then they changed the story. All I got out of that was they wanted me to tell everybody promoted listings were great in the videos. They didn't come out and say it that way, but So I took very high offense that they never got back in touch with me after they promised. So it just seemed to be a vain attempt for me to side with them, and I'll probably get hate from them too from this, because they've called on occasion the house. Again, I'm quoting fact, so I'm not worried about them trying to say I said something I didn't, because this is factual, exactly what happened. So, for those who don't know, I did have a conference call. I had head of seller support, Heller, head of these are like 4 department heads that got in touch with me over that video, and called immediately and stuff apparently. But I can't do something or agree to something when they still never solved the original complaint I had about it back in the day. So again, I do not do promoted listings. I do not recommend promoted listings. If that's what you want to do, that's your call. If it helps you, that's great for you, but I'm not going to give them any more of my money. Our goals are to have our own platform, our own site, as we've been working on for quite some time. It takes a lot of time to migrate 70,000+ listings. That's my problem. And it takes a lot of time to train once one person knows it, and then you got to train everybody else. So anyway, I know that's kind of off topic, but yeah, I used to there used to be WIOT, what was it, FM 101, I think, Toledo, and they had Get the Lead Out. I think it was at like 5 o'clock every day of the week, Monday through Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. I have every Led Zeppelin song ever made. I was a big Led Zeppelin fan. I've got Robert Plant's individual albums. I've got Jimmy Page, Page Coverdale, which was a small, I think they had 2 CDs out, which is David Coverdale of Whitesnake and Jimmy Page. I've got Bonham, I'll Wait, for those of you who know what that is, 80s heavy metal. I was a big Led Zeppelin fan. Yep, and he's quoting some lines there too. Yeah, I listened to Led Zeppelin quite extensively. One of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs is Communication Breakdown. That's just the bomb for me. And if those listen or know or watch my channel enough, I listen to everything. I listen to, everything you can imagine. Classical I have on mine. And not just a couple songs. I've got a ton of it. If you ever been to a rock concert, and you ever go to a orchestra, full-fledged orchestra, it's as loud, it's as, shaking as a heavy metal concert. I'm telling you, it's really interesting. It's really neat. Classical or not. And I know all the key classicals. Night on Bald Mountain is one of my favorites. So, and if you didn't know, Led Zeppelin 4, a lot of that is Misty Mountain Hop. That's straight out of Lord of the Rings, if you didn't know that, Tolkien. So a lot of people don't know that, and they're surprised, but true. Let's pop down and get to just a few more, and then I'm going to have to sign off here. I've talked a lot today with people. Yeah, it's another thing you don't realize when you're sitting here listening, you're thinking you're going to have to do much, but I do a lot of other stuff, so I might be on the phone with somebody for an hour at a time, or texting for hours sometimes too. There's more to it. You got to wheel and deal, you got to set up deals ahead of time and stuff like that. Yeah, you get with cards, even through the post office, you can get insurance on regular priority as well too. You can get insurance on anything really, and if it's something high dollar, I charge for the insurance. I'll bill it into their shipping. Shelly, this will have to be the last one here. It's getting after 8. Are slight scratches okay on records? Yes, as long as they play. The best test for a novice would be the fingernail. If the scratch goes in the direction of the grooves, many times it won't hurt the play, other than in that one groove the scratch is in. It'll still play through too, but if it goes perpendicular to the tracks, and it's deep enough for your fingernail to slip in, it could cause it to skip. That's the biggest concern. If there's anything with a chip, a divot, or anything like that, I don't get it. Now, if you look at a record at the edge and you see all kinds of little tiny lines over it, those are usually slide marks from it being slid in and out of a sleeve over and over and again. Even if the record shines, under heavy light, inside light, usually I use a specific fluorescent and I hold it at an angle. I don't grade a record by playing them at all anymore. I don't need to. I can instantly look at a record and tell you if it's going to play or not. I played tens of thousands of records in my day. Excuse me. So on the record wise, you want to get good enough at grading a record to just be able to look at it. That's your best bet to do anything like that. And a few light scratches won't do any damage to a record as long as they're not deep enough to cause it to skip. You won't know that if you're novice unless you play some records. That's the best bet. Buy a used ion turntable, $40 off eBay usually. Comes with a cord, you're all set. Software's free. Audio City, I think, is what I use, or Audacity, whatever it's called, for editing. And you can do many things with that. If your turntable only has 33 and 45 speed and you want to do 78s, Audio City or Audacity or whatever it's pronounced as, you can change the bit rate to 78,000 and it'll play at 78 speed. So you don't need to have a 78 record player to play 78s, just FYI. You can do anything digitally. You could have a one-speed turntable and just digitally change every file. It doesn't. I do it all the time when I need to. I do have a 78 digital turntable too. Actually, I got a couple of them, but in fact, Ian's borrowed one of my employees has one of them right now. So I've got like 3 total digital turntables, and I've got a laser turntable too that has a laser beam that can change the angle of the direction for a scratch record. I can actually go on the side of the grooves versus that costs a lot of money though. I think a good used one these days is like 10 grand for the turntable. I didn't pay that. I bought a used one years back and we've still had it. I bet it's serviced once or twice, but that's about it. But so again, Shelly, it's going to depend on the record itself. Excuse me, boy. It's been one of those days, I'm telling you. But it's going to depend on the record itself. Sorry about that. Play them. That's my best bet for you, is to play them if you don't know your records. I have 2 videos on grading records by Goldmine standard and by VJM standard. If you're a 78 collector, you're going to use VJM standard. I think it's Jazzmark, Vintage Jazzmark is what VJM stands for. And they're the ones who, I think it's a New York company at one time, but they set the standard for 78 grading. Goldmine is a newer company, and they set the standard for 45s and 33s. Scratches, I've sold a broken record where it was broken on one half, and it was Rocket 88 on Chess. It's a 78 record, and it was broken, and I still got hundreds of dollars for it. So a scratch record, if it's rare enough, can still go for some good money. I've seen a warped, cracked, and scratched record of Northern Soul, and I think it was Cy Hightower, if I'm not mistaken, and it still went for $900. Just depends on the record. I mean, we've sold records over $4,000, just one single record. So on many occasions, not just a couple of times. Mostly 45s. I make more money on 45s dollar-wise, but I sell way more for decent money 78s. Just know your records and you can make some good money. Around where I live, the Motor City's here, and there's just warehouses full of records. I've bought 10,000 records at a time. I don't know how many times. All 45s from jukebox companies and things like that even. DJ collections from radio stations. If a radio station went under here in the last 10 years, I've been to that sale. Every one for at least a couple state area. I go to every one of those. Those are usually the best source because they get stuff that maybe was never released. So anyway, I'm going to have to cut it out. My throat is just killing me. I don't know if I caught something. We've got a lot of kids in school that work for us and stuff. So usually when they get something, I end up getting it sometimes too. So anyway, it's about time though anyway to cut this short. I didn't plan on being on this long again. I haven't had any sleep much at all, and things have been going kind of crazy here. So I do appreciate everybody being on today. Again, I'm going to be taking questions and doing a video here soon. So if you have any other questions I didn't get to, leave them in some of the comments underneath the videos that I have. And I will be pulling some out randomly. And just because I pull one out 1 week from one video doesn't mean I won't come back or somebody here won't come back and pull a couple more questions. So, you know, a lot of the comments aren't questions per se. They're thanks and things like that. So we're just going to be hitting the questions and trying to answer as many of them as we can, like every 10 days or so. So I do appreciate everybody coming on. Hopefully you had a good day. And we will see you around next time for next week's show.